Josh Duggar's 3-year imprisonment, Anna Duggar $2 million loan. Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. For Duggar family latest news update, please subscribe the channel and press the bell icon. The Duggar family had always been under the public eye. For years, they built their reputation on faith, family values, and resilience against criticism. But as 2025 unfolded, their world seemed to collapse in ways they had never imagined. The latest blow came with the shocking news that Josh Duggar, already notorious for past scandals, was sentenced to 3 more years of imprisonment. The moment the sentence was announced, whispers spread across the courtroom. Anna Duggar, sitting on the wooden bench, clutched a tissue in her trembling hand. Her eyes were already red, swollen from hours of weeping. When the gavel struck and the judge declared Josh's fate sealed, Anna let out a sob so raw that even the journalists taking notes lowered their pens for a moment. For Anna, this wasn't just about Josh serving more time behind bars. It was about survival. It was about facing life as a mother of 7 without the steady, albeit troubled, presence of her husband. And looming over her fragile state was another devastating truth. The Duggar family had quietly accumulated a $2 million loan that now threatened to crush them all. The courtroom breakdown. Reporters noted every detail of Anna's face that morning. She wore a pale blue dress, modest and simple, her long hair pulled back in a braid. She had hoped for mercy, had prayed for leniency. She had begged God in every whispered midnight prayer, but mercy didn't come. Josh stood stiffly, his hands clasped in front of him, expression unreadable. His lawyer had fought hard to reduce the time, arguing that Josh had been working on personal reform, attending Bible studies in prison, and expressing remorse. But the prosecution presented evidence of his continued manipulations and influence behind bars. The judge wasn't swayed. Joshua Duggar, the judge, said firmly, "You are hereby sentenced to an additional 3 years imprisonment." Anna gasped. Her world spun. She gripped the bench, searching for air, for hope, for something. Michelle Duggar, seated beside her, leaned in to whisper comfort, but her own hands trembled. Jim Bob sat stiffly behind them, his jaw tight, his eyes fixed on the floor. As Josh was led away in shackles, Anna whispered his name. Josh. Josh, but he didn't turn back. The clang of the cell door in her mind felt like the sound of her marriage breaking all over again. Life without Josh, back home. The silence was unbearable. Anna's children, Mackenzie, Michael, Marcus, Meredith, Mason, Mariella, and Madison, asked too many questions she couldn't answer. When his daddy coming home, little Mason asked one night, tugging on her sleeve as she folded laundry. Anna's throat tightened. "Not for a while, sweetheart," she whispered, pulling him close. "But Daddy loves you. He loves all of you." The older kids knew more. Mackenzie, now a teenager, had overheard too much on the news. She stared at her mother with a mix of sadness and frustration. "Mom, why do you keep defending him?" she asked one evening. "Why do you keep pretending?" Anna's eyes filled with tears. She didn't have an answer that made sense. She only knew she loved Josh, broken as he was, and she couldn't let go. But love wasn't enough to feed her children. Love wasn't enough to pay bills. Love wasn't enough to cover the $2 million loan Jim Bob had signed in his name, and partly hers. The $2 million loan, behind closed doors, the Duggar family was facing financial ruin. For years, they had lived off the royalties of their once famous reality show, book deals, and speaking engagements. But scandals had dried up opportunities. Sponsors had pulled out. Public appearances brought heckling instead of admiration. In 2023, desperate to keep their empire afloat, Jim Bob had quietly taken out a $2 million business loan. He had planned to invest in new rental properties, flip houses, and restore the family's financial stability. But the market crashed. Half-finished projects sat abandoned. Tenants refused to pay. Now, collectors were calling every day. Interest piled up like an avalanche. Jim Bob's name wasn't the only one on the papers. Anna's was too. The debt threatened to strip them of everything: their homes, their land, their security. Family divisions, the loan crisis, and Josh's imprisonment deepened already growing cracks in the Duggar family. Some siblings felt sympathy for Anna. Others were furious. Jessa Seawald confronted her father one night during a tense family gathering at the big Duggar house in Springdale. "Dad, you've dragged us all into this," she said, her voice shaking. "This loan, Josh, the scandals. You've ruined our family's name. You've ruined Anna's life." Jim Bob slammed his fist on the table. "I did what I had to do to keep this family together. To protect all of you. Protect us?" Jinger, who had flown in from Los Angeles, shook her head. "Protecting would have been telling the truth years ago. Protecting would have been letting us live freely, not hiding everything until it blew up in our faces." Michelle sat silently, tears rolling down her cheeks. She had always believed in her husband's leadership, in his decisions, but even she felt the weight of doubt. And then there was Anna, sitting quietly in the corner, clutching her Bible. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't argue. She just whispered prayers that seemed to vanish into the tense air. Anna's private pain. Late at night, when the children were asleep and the house was quiet, Anna sat at the kitchen table with stacks of unpaid bills. The numbers blurred through her tears. She didn't know how to fix this. She thought of Josh alone in prison, eating cold meals, sleeping in a small cot. She thought of their wedding day, when she had believed in a lifetime of love and partnership. She thought of the times she had defended him against the world, convinced he would change. But now, she wasn't sure anymore. Some nights, she screamed into her pillow so the kids wouldn't hear. Other nights, she curled up on the couch, hugging Josh's old sweatshirt, breathing in the faint scent of him that still lingered. She was broken, but she had to keep going for her children, for her faith, for some kind of future. The family struggle in public. The media swarmed the Duggars like vultures. Tabloids ran headlines. "Josh Duggar sentenced again." Anna left in tears. Duggar empire collapses under $2 million debt. Reality TV's famous family faces reality. At last, fans who once adored them now mocked them. Strangers on social media called Anna delusional, Jim Bob a fraud, and Josh a disgrace. And yet, some supporters still prayed for them. Letters poured in from believers across the country. Some sent money, small donations to help Anna buy groceries. Others sent handwritten notes of encouragement. "God gives his hardest battles to his strongest soldiers." Anna read each one. She cried over them. She clung to them, the children's burden. The hardest part was watching her children carry the weight. Mackenzie avoided school friends, embarrassed by the whispers about her father. Michael became withdrawn, spending hours in his room sketching dark pictures of broken chains and locked doors. Meredith asked constantly, "Will Daddy be home for Christmas?" One night, after putting the younger kids to bed, Anna overheard Marcus telling Michael, "Maybe it's better if Daddy never comes home. Then people won't laugh at us anymore." Her heart shattered. Betrayed. Jana Duggar, ex-husband, revealed house sold for $1.6 million. The Duggar family had always lived under the shadow of public curiosity. For years, their large family, conservative values, and strict rules were admired by some and criticized by others. But what unfolded with Jana Duggar, the eldest daughter who had often remained in the background, shocked everyone. What seemed like a quiet, hidden love story turned into a tale of betrayal, heartbreak, and financial crisis that shook the family name again. This is the story of how Jana's ex-husband was revealed, how her dream house was sold for $1.6 million, and how Stephen Wisman's name got entangled in a storm, a secret marriage. Jana Duggar had always been the quiet one. While her younger sisters, Jessa, Jill, Jinger, and Joanna, moved on with marriages, children, and new lives, Jana stayed home. Rumors swirled for years that she was either too picky or too bound by her father, Jim Bob Duggar, to make her own choices. But the truth was much more complicated. 2 years earlier, away from the cameras, Jana had secretly married a man the public had never met. His name was Caleb Bryant, a family friend connected through church circles. Unlike the Wisman family, Caleb had no fame, no large family empire, and no public image to keep. Jana thought this anonymity was a blessing. For the first time in her life, she had something that belonged only to her. The marriage was quiet, almost hidden, just a few witnesses and no cameras. Even many of her siblings didn't know the full story. Jana had thought she had found her freedom, but freedom came at a cost. The hidden struggles, first, married life felt like a dream. Caleb was attentive, gentle, and promised her a life beyond the Duggar compound. They bought a beautiful farmhouse on the outskirts of Springdale, Arkansas, a white 2-story house with blue shutters, sprawling gardens, and enough space to raise a family. But behind closed doors, Caleb wasn't the man he had seemed. He had debts, old ones, and he had kept them hidden. Creditors began calling, letters piled up, and Jana, who had never dealt with financial matters in her life, suddenly found herself facing foreclosure threats. Even worse, Caleb resented the Duggar name. He didn't like how Jana's life was always compared to her sister's, how Jim Bob controlled decisions, how the world expected Duggar women to live a certain way. He began pulling away, spending nights away from home, and rumors whispered through Springdale that Caleb was often seen in town with another woman. Jana prayed, cried, and tried to hold the marriage together. But by the end of the first year, she knew the truth. Caleb had betrayed her, betrayed and alone. The night everything came crashing down was etched into Jana's memory forever. She had waited at home with dinner prepared, only for Caleb to stumble in after midnight smelling of perfume and alcohol. When Jana confronted him, he didn't deny it. "You're a Duggar." He spat bitterly. "You'll never really belong to me. Your family runs your life, and you hide behind them. I want freedom, and you can't give it to me." Jana's heart shattered. For years, she had been accused of being too passive, too dependent, too hidden. Now, even her husband used her upbringing as a weapon. The betrayal wasn't just about the other woman. It was about the life she thought she had finally escaped from. Within weeks, Caleb had left. Papers were signed, and Jana Duggar, once the quiet backbone of the Duggar daughters, became something scandalous within their world, a divorced woman. The news didn't stay hidden forever. When her siblings found out, some offered comfort. Jill cried with her on the phone, Jessa promised to keep it secret, and Joanna drove over with casseroles and hugs. But Jim Bob and Michelle? They were furious. Not just at Caleb, but at Jana. "You should have told us," Jim Bob thundered. "We could have helped. Now look at this mess." But Jana didn't want help anymore. She wanted to be free of the shame. The house sold for $1.60 million. The farmhouse Jana and Caleb had bought became her last tie to the failed marriage. But with Caleb's debts still looming and Jana unable to keep up with payments alone, the house had to be sold. Real estate agents whispered about it for weeks. The Duggar daughters' hidden house, they called it. The farmhouse eventually went to a wealthy couple from out of state, who paid $1.6 million in cash. Jana stood silently the day she handed over the keys. The gardens she had planted, the rooms she had decorated, the dreams she had built, all gone in an instant. But she told herself she wasn't selling her dream. She was selling her past. Enter Stephen Wisman. While the Duggar world reeled, another name surfaced. Stephen Wisman. Stephen had long been rumored to be Jana's suitor. For years, fans speculated about their connection, fueled by photos, church visits, and whispered family gatherings. But Stephen had never pursued Jana openly. When the news of her failed marriage and the house sale spread, Stephen quietly reached out. Unlike Caleb, Stephen was steady, grounded, and came from a family as conservative as the Duggars. But he also carried a warmth Jana hadn't known she needed. "You don't have to prove anything," Stephen told her one afternoon when they met at a small cafe outside of town. "Not to me, not to your family, not to anyone." For the first time since the betrayal, Jana felt seen. Not as a Duggar daughter, not as the quiet sister, not as a divorced woman, but simply as herself. The Duggar family fallout, the revelation of Jana's past, however, didn't stay quiet. Word leaked to tabloids. Jana Duggar's secret ex-husband revealed. Photos of Caleb surfaced, along with details about the. Fans were shocked. Critics mocked. And Jim Bob, once again, was left trying to shield the family's image. "Do you realize what this does to our reputation?" he raged during a tense family meeting. "We've spent years building this testimony, and now," but Jana, for once, didn't shrink. She stood tall, her voice steady. "I'm not your reputation, Dad. I'm your daughter, and I won't be ashamed for choosing love." Even if it failed, the room fell silent. For the first time, Jana's siblings saw a new side of her, a woman determined to live her own life. The months that followed weren't easy. Jana faced whispers in church, critical headlines online, and icy silences from parts of her family. But she also found strength she never knew she had. With the money from the house sale, she chose not to buy another grand home but instead rented a modest apartment, small, cozy, and hers alone. She planted flowers on the balcony, filled shelves with books, and began painting again, rediscovering passions she had long buried. Stephen remained by her side. Though their relationship was slow and cautious, it was steady.